out driving some RCs today, and we're going to get ready to go play at the park. You got your boots on? She's got her boots on because we were getting muddy earlier. But we figured today would be a good day to show you guys something else that I recently picked up, along with an RC truck you're going to see, but you'll see a video on that later. Or maybe before this. I don't know. One or the other. I know you want to play at the playground, but we got to do this first, okay, baby? And then we'll go play at the playground. And you can play all you want, okay? She's ready to go play. And here it is. It is my new to me 1984 Corvette 4+3. The 4+3 means it's a manual because it's a 4-speed manual with overdrive. And the overdrive can be engaged in second, third, and fourth gear. It's got 122,000 miles on it. It's got a few mods done to it, nothing crazy. But overall, it's in relatively good shape. Other than my seat, the rest of the interior is in very good shape. I got some towels laid down in the back because I got one of the trucks all muddy back there. The digital cluster. Everything works. All the gauges work. Runs really well. Tilt and telescopic steering. You know, seats are all electric. It's in very good shape. Said it's mostly stock, other than a few engine mods, because this, being an 84, would have had what they call crossfire injection. And that has been removed. Oh, let's see if I can get this big old hood open. Ah, there we go. Here we go. The crossfire injection has been removed for a Holley 4-barrel, which is a 670 CMF vacuum secondaries with a Y-end intake. I believe it's a single plane. And a Mallory distributor that's a drop-in. Also has an aluminum radiator, long tube headers, and I was told it's a Flowmaster exhaust, but I haven't exactly crawled underneath it with the look yet. So, dude on his bike. Yeah, I know you see the park. Just hang on, baby. We'll go over there in 1 second. But yeah. But it's had a few other minor things done to it maintenance-wise. Like, it's got a newer alternator. I believe they said the water pump wasn't all that old. So, brakes work really good. It shifts really good. It drives really good. Overall, I'm extremely happy with the car. We're not going to go into what I paid for it, because it was not a lot for what it is. It was a very good deal. But we'll talk more about that when we go for a little drive in it. But first, I think if I don't take someone to go play at the park, she is going to get very angry with me. So I think we're going to go do that, and then we'll go for a drive. All right, little miss over here got to have her fun at the park for a little bit. We got some filming done on some RCs that you can see there in the back. Now then, we're going to go for a little drive in the vet and talk about it. Normally starts easier, but I normally give it a few pumps of gas before I start it too. So let's start. It sounds great. It pulls really well. I'm not going to go too crazy in the video because, well, obviously, as you guys know, I've got the little one with me. So I'm not trying to do anything too stupid with her in the car. But, I mean, like I said, this is an 84. It's got 122,000 miles on it. A 670 Holley 4-barrel with vacuum secondaries. A Y-end single plane intake. Mallory ignition system. You know, long tube headers, Flowmaster exhaust. So it's decently modified. I would say it's probably got a little bit more power than stock. I wouldn't claim it's got a ton more power than stock. I would also have to look up the factory numbers. I want to say these things were only rated at like 250 or 300 horse, something like that. It wasn't rated for a lot, but you know, it was also, I want to say these were a fairly light car at 3,000 pounds, if I remember correctly. And believe it or not, because I know a lot of people was not a fan of the body styles and stuff, GM had a lot of engineering into the body style for this car to make it about as aerodynamic as possible and keeping things working the way they need to. So this was aerodynamically probably one of the best Vettes ever built, until you start talking later years after this, where they've got more time, more development into what essentially became the body style of the Corvette up until the C8. But yeah, I mean, overall though, I mean, for a car that a lot of people will claim is not that great, it handles very well. To the point, a lot of Corvettes up until the C8 still had a very similar suspension. The brakes work phenomenally well. The transmission is kind of a weird point, because I want to say this was only offered in like 84, 85, maybe 86, being the 4+3. It was not a very popular option. The Douglas Nash transmission was also been known to not be the most reliable thing in the world, I guess. And a lot of people aren't fans of the overdrive. So me, on the other hand, coming from an MGB, I love the overdrive. That was one of the biggest selling features on an MGB, was the overdrive feature. So for me, the 4-speed with, you know, selectable overdrive was like, sweet. It's kind of like I got a big go-kart version of my MGB. Because at the end of the day, it's selectable in second, third, and fourth with the flip of a switch. Now, you don't want to go, you know, in and out of overdrive a bunch of times. It's not good for it. And the MGB is the same way. You really don't want to be sitting there going in and out of overdrive. You just kind of want to go into it and be in it, and that's it. Yep. Camera's moving. Hopefully the camera's not falling over. I have a feeling I'm going to lose you guys the moment I try to go around a corner. But this phone mount doesn't like the way I set everything up, because it's not holding its own weight per se, so it wants to twist a lot. But yeah, I mean, like right now at 50 mile an hour, I'm at 2,000 RPM, 2,100 RPM. I kicked the overdrive on, and I dropped to 1,500 RPM. You know, to do 52, and it will go up to 55 before it ever clicks to 1,600. So the overdrive is a significantly taller gear, which I think was the biggest gripe to a lot of people, was the gearing difference, because basically with the overdrive off, it's got an 85 mile an hour speedometer in it. You're in fourth gear with the overdrive off, you can just about use the whole speedometer. And that's it. You're not breaking the sound barrier with the overdrive off. Now, you turn the overdrive on, suddenly you're able to do, you know, oh, that's a good sounding exhaust. Small block 350 is just a good sounding engine, as long as the exhaust is good. with the overdrive on, you can basically use the entire speedometer in second gear. It makes it a very different animal with the overdrive on. It does tend to lug itself a lot when you're in lower RPM, but I think that's the intake that's on this particular car. I don't think that's actually a characteristic of the car itself, because single plane intake manifolds don't like low RPM. They like to be in high RPM. So, and on a basically stock 350 that doesn't like going over about 4,500, $5,000, it's not exactly the right intake manifold. An Edelbrock dual plane would have been a much better choice for this car. And if I would have been the one to do it, that's probably what I would have went with, because that's what I had on my Nova as well. Matter of fact, I think I still have the one laying around from my Nova. That may need to go on here. But, I mean, this thing, it pulls really well. For a car that everyone complains about being not very Corvette-like, either I don't understand what a Corvette's supposed to be like, or I think this is the first Corvette that might have actually felt the way Corvettes were supposed to feel, because it doesn't feel like a Camaro or a Firebird or a Trans Am. It is much more planted. It wants to go, and I don't mean go as in like hold it to the floor and see what it has. It wants to be driven. It wants to be thrown around. The brakes are meant to be used, and they don't like just small input. They want to be driven on. Corners that would probably feel sketchy in a lot of other cars at 25 mile an hour feel very, very stable at 40. Maybe more. I don't push my car that hard, but still, you can tell that it's meant to be driven like a sports car and not a grand touring car per se. It is, you feel everything while driving it. You feel the road, you feel where the tires are at, you feel what they're doing, you feel where your brakes are gripping and where you're not applying enough. The seat holds you firmly in place. It's not, and the seat's not about comfort. The seat is about function. Because I'll be honest, the seat's a little narrow for me. I would love a wider seat in here, but the problem is, I don't think you can really fit a wider seat into a C4 than a stock C4 seat, because they're a narrow car. That I think you need to have in order to rationally complain about these cars, is you need to go out and experience one. Because if you don't and you just hate on it because, well, it's a C4 and C4s suck because everyone says they suck, well, then you don't know what you're talking about, because they really don't. For a sports car made and designed in the 80s, this thing's not bad. I mean, I think this thing can be thrown around a lot better than my 86 can, and it's a 2020. Now, I think my 86 probably accelerates a little harder, which is not saying much, because an 86 doesn't exactly accelerate fast at all. But it doesn't, and it probably has more top end than this too. I think it's got better gearing on the top end with the 6-speed than this does with the 4-speed. And I could see where this is an automatic, which is what a lot of them come as, probably kills the experience of it. I could see where just it being an automatic just would not be nearly as fun. But as a manual, it makes the whole driving experience of this thing a lot different, and kind of makes you want to get it out and throw it around some corners and have some fun with it, because it kind of feels like that's what it's meant for, versus an automatic. I think it kind of started feeling like driving Miss Daisy. I mean, that exhaust note though, it's comfortable enough that 3-year-olds falling asleep. That says something. So, yeah. All right. So I think I'm going to shut up. I'm going to spin the camera around, let you guys see out the front for a little bit, and just kind of let you enjoy what is the drive of the 84 C4. Experience at least a little bit of the sound of that. I guess I'll find out when I get back to the house and actually listen to all this. And hopefully some of that, like going through some of those back road corners and stuff, kind of shows why I like this thing. Because like I said, it handles really well. And that I wasn't getting on it. It's just an enjoyable car to drive. But with all that being said, let's get into some of the things that I don't necessarily like. With this particular one, like I said, don't think I'm a big fan of that Y-in intake. I think a lot of the driving issues I've noticed with it, I think come from that Y-in intake, and kind of come from the fact that it's carbureted instead of fuel injected. I would have really preferred a fuel injected one over when it had been carburetor swapped. This being an 84, I think this actually had the least favorable option of the three, because this had I think they call it crossfire fuel injection, which was basically two small TBI setups, which were garbage individually, two of them put on the same engine, and made work together. And that in itself, I don't think was a good option in general. So, and that's what this car would have had. But that was taken off, and it was swapped to a single 4-barrel, which I think was a much better option than what was on factory. Now, if I could have afforded to get, or found one affordable enough in a manual like this one, in a slightly newer one, I want to say like 89 or 90, on up to, I think 96 is the last year for these, or 97 maybe. I could have had like actual tune port injection, which would have been my very preferred option. But like I said, beggars kind of can't be choosers. So this was the vet that I found. This is the vet that I could afford. There were some other ones, but this one, I really liked the color of it. I liked the fact that it had cloth seats instead of leather. These were actually an optional thing, not a standard thing for these cars. I love the fact that it's a manual, and good luck finding a tune port injected model that's a manual, because all those are 5-speed or 6-speed if you get a ZR1, for under like $9,000 or $10,000. Because at the end of the day, while these are some of the cheapest vets you can buy, they're still vets. They're still not cheap. Now you can get automatic, crossfire injection and even tune port cars that are in rough shape with super high miles for bargains. When I say bargains, I mean like $3,000-$4,000. That being said, though, they're beat. They're beat hard. I mean, you're talking those are some small blocks with 200,000 miles on them. I think that's a TH400 transmission, so it's only a 3-speed, and it's probably not had the easiest life in the world. God knows when maintenance was done, how maintenance was done, because now you're talking, it's a cheap Corvette, not a, and it's not a desirable Corvette. Versus this, I paid not bottom dollar for these cars for it, but I paid, a very respectably low amount for what it is. I'm just not happy with the carburetor. Everything else about the car seems good. I really wish the seats were wider. These seats are very narrow. I would venture to say they're about the narrowest Corvette seats ever made, but they are also some of the best holding Corvette seats ever made. So, you got to take the good with the bad. I am very surprised with how good visibility is out of it, with as low as it sets. For a sports car that rides really firmly, it's not rough. I honestly expected the whole mono-leaf setup these things got going on to ride a lot rougher. But yeah, it's just, overall, I don't got a lot of complaints about it. This is one of the situations too where I'm glad I took the wife's advice, because I was looking at some cheap Corvettes that were the paint's shot It's an automatic transmission car, 200,000 miles on it. Because as you guys know, I like crappy versions of cool cars, and I was fully prepared to buy a crappy version of the crappy Corvette because I still think they're cool. But the wife wouldn't know. She's like, I think this is a car where if you're going to do it, you need, she's like, I'm not saying buy an amazing version of it, but you need to buy a good version of it. You know, not your sort by cheapest normal that you would buy. Actually spend a little bit more, get one that's in good shape, get one that doesn't have, 250,000 mile on it. And most of all, she's like, don't get freaking red. So that was one of her biggest things with this one, was it wasn't red. And one of the big reasons why she actually liked it and said, go for it. And I think this is definitely one of those situations where she was 100% right. If I would have bought a cheap version of this car, I think by now I would have already gotten tired of it. And I've only had this, I've had it maybe a month. And that's why we're doing this video now. Because I had, as you guys have heard in other videos, I had my taxes and stuff I needed to take care of. And that needed done before I posted about this. Because it all kind of came full circle at the same time. Those needed done, this was bought, all of it happened right now. And she didn't want me posting about it until we knew 100% on how we were covering taxes and that they were actually covered, and that, well, I wasn't making a video on this and then turning around having to just sell it to be able to cover the taxes because, well, life happens. Yeah. But I gotta say, this is one of those, they say don't meet your heroes. I wouldn't say this is necessarily a hero car for me, but it is one that I have always liked since I was young. I'm talking probably Sis's age young, and I've always wanted one. But there's always been that fear of, I'm going to get one and I'm going to hate it. It is, and I'm glad that I am wrong. I thoroughly enjoy this car. So, future plans, because there are some for it, are I want to swap it to fuel injection. I really want to swap it to probably a Holley Sniper EFI fuel injection. Or I may go a little on the cheaper side and get the Jegs Bandit EFI, which is essentially the same system. But it's only 2/3 of the price. So, and I want to get rid of this Wyand single plane intake manifold. I really want to swap it to probably an Edelbrock Performer Series dual plane. I would like to put new wheels and tires on it. I definitely want to clean up the paint some, because while the paint's in great shape, it's just dirty. I want to get this seat reupholstered. At this point, I'm just driving around talking. I figure I'm going to do the whole video setting in the car. So there are some plans, and I would like to possibly, because I know how simple the rear of these are to lower. The front takes a little bit more work, but lowering these about an inch, which is about all the more I need to lower it to really define the wheel well arches with the wheels. Relatively cheap and simple. So that is something I think I'm going to look into. Wonder if that Dodge is just going to try to run me over. there's a few things wrong with it that I am going to try to address. Like, it's got the very typical GM 80s, 90s. One of the headlights work fine, the other one doesn't. They both go up and down, but the motor on the driver's side one, you have to like pull it back out a little bit so the motor actually stops spinning. The door locks are a little funky because some of the plastic clips on the inside broke. Things of that nature. But for the most part, everything works. This window motor is a little slow. So this is definitely a car you guys are going to see more. Didn't shove the clutch in far enough. Definitely a car you guys are going to see more of on the channel. I would definitely like to do a better video. Do another review once I've had it a little bit longer and I've got to put a few more miles on it. But I think that at this point I've put about 50, 60 mile on it, maybe a little bit more. And that's it. But let's see if I can get you guys the sound of that exhaust note a little bit better. Sounds so good. There's a few other little things that I'd like to change. Like, I'd like to maybe put a better radio in it. The cigarette lighter doesn't always work. Just like I said, it's a bunch of little things. Oh, definitely want to get a video where this top is out because it's a Targa top car. Which is another thing. I was like, when he told me that, because he didn't mention it in the ad. He's like, it's a Targa top car, you know. I was like, sweet. That pretty much sold me on it right then and there. Like, the moment he said that, I was like, oh, it's a convertible. Mint. This really does, for me, feel like a more grown-up version of the MGB. Because you're kind of, once you're in it, you're in it. And everything has a place and everything's in a place. There's nothing in it that you don't need. And all the controls are kind of in wonky spots. Let me show you. Like, right here is your window switches. Then you've got your mirrors, your controls for your mirrors, the overdrive button. These are the controls for your seat, for the driver's side seat, to make all the adjustments. Then it also has buttons on the seat itself that I haven't quite figured out what all of them do. There's more over here under my butt, you know. The windshield wiper switch is over here on the door panel. You got your fog light switch, headlights. Oh, yeah, that one doesn't always like to do its job. Ugh. Come on. Oh. Remember I said the headlights don't always like to work right? Where'd the switch go? I have lost the switch. Now I gotta let that one grind. I'll come over here and get this one to go. There we go. And then reach in, lose the switch again. Dang it. Pull it out a little bit, and now they stop making the grinding noise. So, but there you guys have it. That is the Corvette in a nutshell. I hope you guys like it. I really enjoy it. It is a great looking car. Definitely a bit of a difference from my norms, that's for sure. But yeah, I think a little later on you guys are going to see me cleaning it up, and we're going to go through some things on it, make sure everything's working as they should, and really start to enjoy this more, because it's starting to get to the right weather for a Corvette. So on that note, as you guys can see, I've got a little one asleep in the passenger seat. I think it's time to call this a video. Not a real long one, but not probably a real short one by the time I get done editing it. You guys have yourself a good day, and I'll see you next time. Till then, get out and enjoy your junk. Bye.